Whether you're a new sales VP taking over a team or trying to fix an underperforming organization, I'm about to walk you through the exact framework we use to identify and fix the biggest constraints holding your team back. You'll get a complete 23-point assessment system across 3 critical categories: your people, your KPIs, and your processes. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to evaluate and audit every component of your sales organization and create your action plan for the next 90 days. Hey, I'm Marcus Shan, former #1 sales director at Syndos Corporation, where I led a 110-person sales org to profitably deliver over 190 million TCV each year, and now I'm a sales trainer and coach of the fastest growing companies and reps in the world. Now, after personally doing over a dozen team turnarounds, I realized during my very first turnaround, I was prioritizing the wrong things. There were dozens of fires to put out, but I didn't realize what were the actual biggest fires that needed my attention first and actually delayed my team results in mind the longer it took for me to actually fix those constraints. And I want to help you with that today. I'll be going into detail 23 different points you can use to assess your own organization and make the changes in the first 9 days to get lasting results. Let's dive in. So I'm going to use a really simple tool that we use when we're auditing sales orgs to see how we can best help support them. And there's the 3 categories I mentioned, which is the people, the KPIs, and the processes right below. And each one has many subpoints. So let's go and dive into people first. So we're going to actually look at first the frontline leaders. And really, there's one core objective. We're asking ourselves, do we have the right leader in the job that has the skills and capabilities to succeed? And really, there's a few different questions we're really asking ourselves here. Number 1, how effectively does this leader coach and develop their team? This is one of the key skills that you have to have for that specific frontline leader. Now, if you're managing that team directly, this is something you have to ask yourself, all right? And next, how well do they hold the team accountable to goals, expectations, and performance standards? Now, across the board, I've seen all types of different leaders, from the raw cheerleader with their very great motivational speeches, but they're actually not holding them accountable, to the flip side, someone who's basically just like a drill sergeant, and they're not doing the other things that actually lead to a high-performing culture. So understanding, do they hold the team accountable to goals, expectations, and performance standards? Do they inspire and command respect from their team? This is very critical, because at the end of the day, if they don't respect their leader, that makes it very hard for them to actually lead to long-term results. How strategic are they in managing pipeline, forecasting, optimizing sales processes, and hiring? So this is a really critical one, where sometimes I see maybe a great rep who becomes a sales leader. They're really good at managing their number and like driving results, but they're not able to look further ahead. They're not able to look 3, 6, 12, 24 months ahead and plan accordingly. So you want to uncover, do they have a strategic way of thinking to be able to make long-term decisions, from hiring, training, developing the team, to actually get long-term results? Are they consistently driving results in terms of team quota attainment, team performance, revenue growth? Are they delivering on what they're supposed to be doing? And then the leaders should actively foster an inclusive environment where all voices are heard and valued. And unfortunately, I've been on teams personally where the leader has chosen the golden child of the team, if you will, and the rest of the team is basically just there and not really supported as well. And that's a very dangerous culture to build as well, because it's built around one single person. And the reality is the frontline leaders, that's where the buck stops. And that's why we're intentionally starting this first point here, because the leader by itself, even if you miss the other components that we're going to go over in just a little bit, the leader by itself can make a drastic change to really the results that the team is actually delivering. Let me give you a really simple example. Years ago, I had just gotten promoted to be a sales leader in the Portland, Oregon operation of the company I was working at. And for years, the team had been missing their number. No one's hitting quota. No one's going to President's Club. Bad team culture. People said nobody wins in Portland. And it looked really dismal. And the operation had been in negative growth for years. And what was really interesting was, first, actually, they put a new leader in place who was amazing at Travis, who actually was the guy who actually hired me to join the team, but he got recruited away to a different company about 3 to 6 months in. So I took over this team that was sadly underperforming. They were not in good spirits, culture was terrible, etc. And I took the team over and implemented some things we'll discuss later in this video. And within a couple of years, we became one of the top performing teams consistently. And the biggest shift was really only shifting a new leader. That was really it. And reality was, because I'd done so many team turnarounds at that point, I just knew exactly what to fix to drive the most results. So that's why we started here, the frontline leader first, because the frontline leader by itself can solve a lot of problems. Now, granted, someone who can do all these things amazingly well, plus these other components really, really well, is a little more of a unicorn. Those people end up starting their own business and doing their own thing eventually over time, kind of what I end up doing, right? But at the very least, you want to make sure they have these type of core skills as part of it. And if you're looking at the sheet, hey, where are these other columns here? So you'll see here, what you want to be able to as part of your assessment is you give a score rating. Now here, I just score on a scale 1 to 5. 1's bad, 5 is great. But on top of that, also a priority. So this makes it very important to be able to categorize low, medium, high. And if you put everything for high, it's going to make it very hard. So part of this is when you're going through your assessment and you're answering these questions, you also want to answer, okay, is this a low, mid, or high priority? Because at the end, once you go through all of it, you're going to identify the highest priority ones and tackle the biggest ones that have the greatest impact for you. In terms of specifically solving this specific area, at the end of the day, you can either, number one, if you have a leader in place, can you train and coach them to be successful? And if you can't do that, it might be as simple as putting somebody new into that role instead to actually already has those skills. The next category, which is account executive and sales pro. So really what we're asking ourselves here is, do we have the right rep, the right person in the job that has the skills and capabilities to succeed? We're tackling after the who first, right? Do we have the right leaders? Now, do we have the right reps on the team? Can they consistently build and maintain a strong pipeline of qualified opportunities? Can the rep effectively progress initial sales conversation to the next step? So an 80% plus conversion to the next step. How well do they execute sales conversation at all stages of a deal with multiple stakeholders? Now, if you sell a more transactional product or service or good, obviously have multiple stakeholders, but my point is more so is how effective are they with managing that deal to a close? What's their average win rate? Okay, from initial discovery to close, is it greater than 25%? And by the way, if you're primarily an inbound team, that should be greater than 35%. Do they take ownership of their performance, consistently hit their activity and revenue targets? How strategic are they in managing their pipeline forecasting, optimizing sales processes? Now, some of you might be like, hey, so why is that even important? Because that's a bigger picture type of thing. Well, here's the reality. My guess is when you're hiring someone for your team, you obviously want them to perform, but not just today, but hopefully 12, 24, 36 months and beyond. And hopefully, if they do a good job, maybe you'll promote them within the company as well into other roles too, right? So if you think that way, ideally, they have these skills already, and you're going to hire someone that has those skills. And then last but not least, but are they delivering? Are they consistently driving the results in terms of quota attainment, team performance, and revenue growth? So this is obviously very important. Are they delivering on their thing? Now, here's the thing. Depending on what you sell, for example, if you're in an enterprise sales org, reality is you really want to hire someone who already has these skills. Now, you could take time to train and develop them, but depending on your actual number you need to deliver, you may not have enough time to try to train and develop someone who, to get to that point. Now, if they have these skills, but maybe they're not super strong, then obviously you can put training programs in place, help them develop these skills to get massively successful. So very key. So again, contextually, what you want to do next really depends on the state of the organization, what you sell, your sales cycle, etc. Next, we're going to dive into sales culture and morale. So now we discuss, hey, do we have the right leader? Do we have the right people on the team? And then we're going to look at overall, how about the sales culture and morale? Does the environment motivate, support, and retain top performers while fostering a culture of growth and accountability? So we're intentionally separating this section out because if all your top performers are consistently leaving, then there is a bigger issue at play here. So we want to dive deeper. Do the reps feel supported, valued, and recognized for their contributions? So at the end of the day, I found the top reps, yes, for sure, motivated by making money, etc., but they also want to feel they are bringing value to the organization outside just delivering their numbers. So this is really important. Is there a strong sense of team collaboration, or is it overly competitive and silent? And I've seen that with some teams where it's like a dog-eat-dog's world. They're really competitive, but they're all against each other. No one's really working together. And that can work for driving some really transactional sales and results, but long-term wise, if you want to build a great organization and reduce your overall turnover and churn and increase your profitability, you need people to stay longer. That's just a reality. Do managers and leadership provide clear communication, vision, and direction for the team? This is a really important one, right? I'm in mid-audit right now with the team, and as I'm talking to many sales professionals on the team, what's become very clear is there's been a lot of changes in the company, but there's no communication. So they see the CEO making all these changes in the company, and they see it, they understand what it is, but they're not really understanding why it's being done. And they're saying, hey, listen, instead of investing money there, why not taking the money investing here, which is going to help us with our sales process? Why not take the money and get better qualified leads? And so they're surprised in terms of what they're seeing. What that tells me is the vision's not being communicated clearly. There's not really communication, there's not much direction. So they're floating in silos, which is not very good. Next, are high performers staying long-term, and do they see opportunities for career growth within the company? Very important. Do the reps believe in the company's product, mission, and values? And is a team diverse in terms of gender, race, background, experience? This is so critical, right? Having a team that does not all look and act exactly the same is very important. Otherwise, you have an echo chamber and the team doesn't actually grow. The more diverse the team is from experience, gender, sex, whatever, the more diverse the team is, obviously skilled in what they do, you're going to create a better performing culture that's very diverse in thought, and they help each other become better over time. Now, in order to solve some of these core issues, what you really need to think about is like, what can we do to implement some of these things in place? And some of them are going to be very much process focused, which we'll cover in the process section, and some are going to be leadership focused, some are going to be rep focused. That's going to be absolutely critical to make changes in actual culture in morale. Because oftentimes, it's not what you do one time, it's what you do consistently that truly impacts the overall culture and the morale. Okay, so that's it for the people section, which we're making sure, do we have the right leaders? Do we have the right people? And are we developing the right culture? Next, we're going to dive into KPIs, which is key performance indicators, if you do not know what that is. And this is like specific things you're going to be targeting to go after specific numbers. We're going to break down the 6 key points. The first one's going to be sales targets and quota. Objective here is, are the sales targets clear, motivating, and realistic for the sales team to actually achieve? This is what we're trying to answer here, all right? So you ask yourself, number one, are there clear targets for each month, quarter, and year? And it's really critical here to actually have it broken down by quarter, month, and year. And some people even do by week or day, depending on what type of sale that you do. But this is very important because this helps the reps have a very clear target of what they go after. That same team I just mentioned, which they're not really communicating, they have one clear annual target, but there's no other measurements, so they don't know how they're performing throughout the rest of the year. That's like watching the Super Bowl without having a scoreboard. That's a very dangerous place to be. No one's going to watch it if there's no scoreboard. Next, are sales targets based on data-driven insights, market potential, and historical performance? This is important to actually understand because for some organizations, some leaders, they're picking their targets by literally throwing a dart at the dartboard and they're just hoping the reps hit it. And there has to be some sort of data points to actually make sure the math makes sense. So being able to work the math backwards, say, all right, if we do these things, it's going to lead to this result and the market potential is going to be X amount. Next, are targets aligned with overall company revenue goals and broken down into actionable, measurable steps. So it's one thing to give each rep, say, a $2 million quota. It's another thing to say, okay, if each of you do $2 million this year, our sales team will do 20 million, which will help our impact our company this way. But in order to do $2 million a year, you need to sell X amount each month. So this is very powerful because this helps them see things at a more granular level, what to execute every single day, every single week. And then, is there a balanced distribution that ensures targets are stretching but realistic? I'm all about having big goals that stretch the reps. I'm all about pushing them to become better and better. But it also comes to a point where if you increase it too much as a way to hit their number, that can also be very demotivating as well. So making sure there's a balanced distribution, that it's going to for sure be more to stretch them, but also they feel it's attainable, because if they don't feel it's attainable, it's going to be very hard to get them to actually perform to that same level. Now, fortunately, the solve here is relatively simple. You just need to make sure whatever targets are being put in place are data-backed, insight-driven, are clear, and balanced across all the reps. That's it. Next, we actually separate into activity targets. And what we're trying to uncover here is, are activity targets clear and driving the right behaviors that lead to revenue generation? Now, unfortunately, I see this quite often, which is there's an arbitrary number put out for the account executives or sometimes even for the SDR team or BDR team, where it's just a number that maybe someone chose years ago and set a number. So for instance, they say, okay, every day you must make 100 cold calls and you must send 100 emails. And that's the metric we measure. Why is that the metric? You want to understand what's a correlation. So we'll dive into these questions. So for instance here, number one, do you have clear activity targets for each week, month, quarter, and or year? Okay. Number two, are each of the activity targets, this could be for calls, emails, meeting demos, are they tied directly to pipeline and revenue generation? That's really the number we're focused on, which is we want more pipeline, we want to close more deals. It's really as simple as that. And number three, is there a clear correlation between activity metrics and actual closed deals? And this is where I often see a disconnect where the top performing rep has the lowest activity, but the greatest results. In reality is you want to make sure everything's completely aligned to driving toward what actually drive results. And then last but not least, does the team, the reps, understand why these actually matter and how it impacts their success? Because if it's more of a check the box when you do 100 calls, 100 emails a day, yeah, some of them might do it, but if they don't understand the why, how it actually helps them get results, they're not going to want to do it. So you want to make sure it's completely aligned to revenue generation and pipeline generation. So if your activity metrics are off here, what you're going to want to do here is just do the math backwards. If you know the sales targets and quotas, work the math backwards so you understand and you can map out, explain why they need to do X number of calls or demos a day to get to the results you're actually looking for. The next bucket is reporting and scorecards. So we're going to separate this out intentionally from the targets and activity targets because this is more so from providing reports and scorecards. And we want to ask ourselves, reporting and scorecards, are they accurate, actionable, and do they drive an improvement in performance? This is so vital. This is the scoreboard analogy I mentioned earlier with sports team. Reality is for any sport you might watch, just imagine they remove the scoreboard. Would you watch the game if there was no scoreboard? Chances are you probably wouldn't. I personally would not. So we want to ask ourselves here, do reps have visibility into their own performance metrics in a way that motivates them to improve? Can they access it consistently and easily to see how, where they stack? Can managers quickly identify coaching opportunities, performance gaps based on scorecard data? This is really key to be able to look at the data. Based off this data that's being provided for me, I can make decisions on how I'm going to coach and manage each rep or the team to actually improve their skills to go towards hitting the numbers we want to hit. Are the right metrics being tracked, focusing on leading indicators, that's activity, pipeline health, and lagging indicators such as revenue, quota attainment. This is key. So it's not about measuring more KPIs and more numbers. It's about measuring and showing the right ones actually motivate performance. Is reporting automated, accurate, updated in real time, minimizing the need for manual data entries? For some companies out there, and hopefully you're not one of them, if everything's completely manual, so they don't trust the data, it takes forever to do, they're not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. So you want to make sure it's very easy for reports to be either sent to them or they can pull it out or they can look at it very easily when they log into their CRM so they know exactly where they stand. Are scoreboards being visibly shared and discussed in public accountability session on a consistent basis to drive changes and behavior? This is a very important one. Some leaders and some teams just live by Slack and email or Microsoft Teams. They send the scoreboards out. At least they're sending that, which is good, right? But here's the reality. Your reps are busy on calls, talking to the prospects. They might glance at it, etc. But how much energy folks are going to put into that specific scorecard? Some reps a lot. Some of them are like, whatever, the scorecard. So this is why it's really critical that there is a cadence of accountability and some sort of meeting where that's being discussed every single week. So for instance, I ran a Monday sales meeting. In that Monday sales meeting, each rep is discussing the performance of priority from an activity metrics, but also a sold metrics as well. So this way is a constant public accountability and scorecard that everybody sees how everyone's performing. We also pull up team rankings so everyone sees exactly where they stand, how performing to their targets, which is very vital as well. And last but not least, our scoreboards easy to read and understand within 5 seconds of viewing. What you don't want to provide is a scoreboard that has like a million lines of data they have to filter through just to see their own data. You want your reps to be able to look at the scorecard and very quickly be like, all right, I'm doing a good or bad job. I need to change my behavior, not change my behavior. This is really important. Let me give you a really simple example. A couple of quarters ago, I was working with an organization when they've been around for a long time, but they did not really have any type of scorecards or reporting for all the activity metrics to close metrics and all those details that you need in between. So we put together a very simple KPI scorecard that the reps would just take a few minutes to update every single day. And here's the beautiful part. By them consistently updating just maybe 30 seconds update every single day, we started seeing trends and performance improvements, right? By the end of the 90 days, that team ended up selling $1.7 million in new business on $1 million quarter quota. And pipeline literally 10x as a result because now they had clear metrics they're measuring and they knew everyone's looking at it and it drove them to perform at a higher level. This is the power of having a clear scorecard reporting because it drives performance. Okay, next we're going to go over CAC, customer acquisition costs, and sales efficiency. And really the objective here is asking ourselves, are sales efforts converting revenue in a cost-effective way without unnecessary waste? All right, are we generating at least $1 in new revenue for every $1 spent on sales and marketing? Is our CAC, customer acquisition cost, aligned with the revenue goals and the payback period expectation? Are we closing high-value deals efficiently, or are we spending too much time on low-value customers? Are our current sales and marketing investments yielding a strong sales return? So that means your sales efficiency is greater than 1. Is our sales motion scalable? Will mean that increasing investment in sales will particularly drive more revenue. And depending on what you uncover here, this may mean many different shifts within the organization to actually lower your CAC and actually improve your sales efficiency. The next category is going to be sales cycle length. Here we're asking ourselves, are deals moving through the pipeline efficiently and closing in a reasonable time frame? And we want to find out, is the average sales cycle length in line with industry benchmarks and deal complexity? So this is really important because obviously if you're selling an enterprise sale, average deal is $1 million plus, you cannot compare it to a transactional 10K a year type of deal, all right? You also want to cover, hey, where are deals getting stuck in the pipeline? And do we have a clear strategy to actually accelerate stalled opportunities? Is that internal issue that's causing it to get stuck, or is it external to prospects? Are reps effectively qualifying prospects up front to avoid wasting time on deals that will never close? Are we using automation, pre-sales report, and streamlined processes to speed up deal execution? Are deals closer faster for top performing reps compared to the rest of the team? What best practices can be replicated? Ultimately, our goal here is how can we compress the timeline of deals? And there's many ways to solve these issues, just depending on which specific area has the biggest problems. The next point we're going to cover is going to be win-loss analysis. The objective here is a sales team learning from past deals to improve win rates and refine their sales strategy. So this is really key. So number one, do we have a structured process for analyzing why we win or lose deals? Are we tracking and categorizing win-loss reasons, pricing, product fit, competition, sales execution, and timing? Are insights from the win-loss analysis resulting in using that to teach improved sales strategy, training, and messaging? Think about this. If you're consistently winning deals in a certain, say, ICP, what's your team consistently doing well that can be taught to the rest of the team? On the flip side, if you're consistently losing deals, why is that? What can you do differently to actually improve results? Do we incorporate direct customer feedback from lost deals to refine our approach? And are win rates improving over time as a result of our analysis and adjustments? Next, we're going to dive right into processes, which is the third overall big category, and we have many bullet points to hit on here. So let's dive right into the hiring first. So first, we're asking ourselves from the hiring perspective, are you attracting, selecting, and hiring the right talent for long-term sales success? There's a few different points I want to check into here. So is there a clear, ideal hiring profile that lists out skills and competencies of a top-performing salesperson? So this is very important to understand. Hey, are we clear on what a top 1% rep looks like for our company? Is there a structured, repeatable hiring process that consistently identifies top-performing sales candidates? Are candidates assessed for both skills and cultural fit using a standardized evaluation method? Are real-world scenarios, role plays, or behavioral interviews being used to evaluate a candidate's true selling ability? And are candidates showing proof via a brag book or proof of their actual past successes? So being able to showcase and show, hey, here's the top rankings, here's how I perform, here's recommendations, here's reviews about me, here's emails and Slacks from customers, talking about how great they perform, here's like letters from internal, external, etc. And depending on the size of your organization, when you look at top performing organizations that consistently grow, for instance, like the company Cintas where I was at for several years, they had this process on lockdown. And they had a very clear hiring profile they wanted to go after. But on top of that, the interview process was aligned to all these things. So they had 5 core steps. So number one, they had a screening interview, basically kind of pre-qualifies the potential hire. Then the first interview was with the hiring manager. They're all behavioral questions. So it was diving into specific questions, asking for specific examples that they could showcase of how they're good, right? At that point, you're also looking at the brag book and see how good they are. Now, I also would inject a role play at that point live with them in their situation to see how well they perform. And I just make sure that I could see their skills live in action as if they work for their current company trying to sell it to me. And then we actually had a full day in-person field ride meeting. They came to the office. They got to see a sales meeting or training meeting. They got to hop on the phones with the sales team in the bullpen. They also got to go in the field with the rep and ride around and see meetings and meet with prospects live so we could see the skills. They got to cold call. They got to see a full day of exactly what a top performing rep does. And this really helped us vet to the next level. And then we had another interview after that with a different stakeholder within the company, and then a final with the sales VP. So this allows us to have multiple perspectives, anywhere from the hiring manager to the HR manager to the general manager to even the top reps, to get all their insights so we get a cohesive picture. Hey, is this the right person for our company? Now, it's not perfect by any means because it's also still prone to human error, but when you have a consistent process, it increases your chances of hiring the right person. Now, once they're hired, you got to make sure they're onboarded properly as well. So the objective here is asking yourself, are new hires ramping up efficiently and positioned for long-term success? This is the foundation that you must have in place to ensure they're going to be successful, right? So is there a clear structured onboarding program with clear milestones for new sales hire? How long does it take for a new hire to become fully productive and start closing deals? This is really critical because obviously the longer it takes for them to ramp up and perform, the longer they delay results. But on top of that, they take too long, they start to get in their own head because they haven't performed for so long at that point. Are new hires receiving hands-on coaching, role-play opportunities, and real-world sales exposure early in the process? There's onboarding covering not just product knowledge, but also the sales process, competitive positioning, and customer pain points and problems. Unfortunately, most onboarding programs I see are heavy in product knowledge, and they don't teach you anything about actually how to effectively sell to those personas in ICP. So you want to make sure it covers far beyond that. Do new hires have a clear plan for the first 30, 60, 90 days with accountability checkpoints? And the better onboarding you have, the faster people start getting results. So for instance, even for my own company, we have a very robust training program when we onboard someone new that in the first 30 days, we're teaching them everything they need to know to be massive success in every aspect of the role. Literally by week 2, they're already hopping on discovery calls because of the training and onboarding we're setting in week 1. So literally by week 2, they could be moving deals forward, closing deals by literally week 2. So it's all designed intentionally because I remember being thrown in places with zero training, zero onboarding, and I remember struggling for months. And I remember seeing other people struggle as well. And I just knew if I could just install a better onboarding up front, it could solve a lot of problems on the back end. Next, we're going to dive into sales training. The objective here is asking, is a sales training provide effectively developing reps and driving real performance improvements? So we want to ask ourselves, is a sales training being provided ongoing and reinforced? Or is it a one-time event during onboarding or once a quarter? Does training focus on real-world selling skills like discovery, objection handling, and closing? Unfortunately, I've seen some of these sales teams are putting together and, we train them on products. At the end of the day, if the products could sell themselves without a salesperson, the company would just offer it that way and they wouldn't hire salespeople. Are the training sessions interactive, incorporating role plays, call reviews, and peer feedback? So this is really critical. Is it a PowerPoint slide to death, or are they interactive and making sure they're truly engaged to actually change habits and behaviors of the reps? Are managers actively involved in reinforcing training through coaching and follow-up? I want you to think about the top performing sports teams. They don't just train one time and hope their team is going to be great and win every championship. No. They train nonstop. Why? Because they know how important it is to develop those habits. Is training effectiveness measured based on improvements in sales performance, conversion rates, and quota attainment? Reality is if you're a company, your org is already putting training in place, but it's not changing results and behaviors, you got to ask yourself, is a training truly effective, or is it a check the box? The next point I want to check into is going to be the sales meetings. I'm intentionally separating this out from sales meeting versus a training meeting. All right. So our objective here is our sales meetings engaging, productive, drive better performance. All right. So realistically, are the meetings being done on a consistent basis? Is there a clear structure to the meeting? Is there a clear agenda, focusing on a clear vision, performance, strategy, and skill development? Does each rep review exactly where their numbers are, where they stand in comparison to their targets? Is there a cadence of accountability? This is wildly important. When they have to, in front of their peers, discuss how they're performing, this creates internal pressure. That internal pressure is far greater than any external pressure you put on them. Because at the end of the day, you want them to perform for themselves and not for you. But sometimes when they see how other people are doing in comparison to them, this does break some of their limiting beliefs. So for instance, one of the teams I was working with, they implemented just a very simple scoreboard because they had about 80% of the team that would constantly complain about the market, the competition, and all these uncontrollables. But the 20% of the reps were crushing it, who were also selling the exact same markets. So interesting part was when they could see a scoreboard consistently, oh man, like these two reps are so consistently crushing it, it becomes very clear, okay, there's something that they're doing that I'm not doing. What could that be? How can I improve my game? Half the battle of managing sales teams is making sure they're fully aware of what they're weak at and helping them build a plan to actually solve those challenges. Do meetings provide actual insights and coaching to help reps improve their results? It shouldn't just be a bunch of housekeeping items, right? And I get something you have to cover some kind of overall housekeeping items, but can you make sure it's value add so they walk away with more skills and development? Are top performers sharing best practices and struggling reps receiving constructive feedback? So it should not be you or your frontline leader on a soapbox preaching at them. It should be an interactive, engaging meeting where everyone's contributing. You want to have that rising tide that lifts all ships mentality. Is the energy engagement high? Keeping reps motivated and accountable. So again, this is really important for driving that energy. And if action items are set from the meeting, are they clear follow-ups ensuring the meeting drives real improvements? So this is something for sure that you can implement immediately, which I recommend having that every single week. So this way, the team has the vision. I personally like to have a Monday morning because this way I can control how the rest of the week went for them and say, hey, here's the vision. Here's your focus for the week. Let's get after it. Next, we're going to break apart training meetings. Now, I intentionally separate it apart because this is a separate meeting where literally your objective here is asking yourself, hey, are training meetings developing skills, reinforcing best practices, and driving measurable improvements? And I want that single meeting focused primarily just on that. So you got to ask yourself, are training meetings being conducted on a consistent basis? Ideally, every single week. Some people might need it daily depending on what you guys sell and the team that you're running. Is a training meeting focused on a specific skill or challenge that directly impacts sales success? So it should not be the frontline leader walking like, all right, guys, what are you going to get trained on? At the end of the day, most people are unaware of their own weaknesses, and they need a third party to look at them and be like, oh man, we're really struggling with this. So the leader needs to have that vision to be able to see like, all right, our team is struggling with objection handling. Let's work on objection handling. Do the training meetings involve active participation such as role plays, call breakdowns, or live selling scenarios? So again, someone mentioned before, it shouldn't be a PowerPoint to death. This should be very interactive where there's role plays, there's interaction, and they're practicing their skills here. Because at the end of the day, the game is won not in front of the prospect, it's won in training. What you do with a team leading up to it determines how to perform actually on the field. It's aligned with current team challenges, market shifts, and data-driven performance gaps. So it shouldn't be just a random pick the leader or train topic. Again, it has to be calculated. It must be very intentional. So this way, you're actually improving the reps' performance. Do managers, top reps actively participate, reinforce, and demonstrate best practices? So one of the things I consistently did for every training I ran is I would teach a principle, I would role play with them, and I have a rep be my prospect, and I had them be tough on me. And intentionally, I had them be tough on me because I wanted to show them how to actually implement the framework I was teaching. So this way they knew that, oh, wow, okay, he actually eats his own dog food, for lack of a better term. So when you show them that there's actual skill behind it, they need to develop those skills, it's very empowering for them. So this is really, really critical. And then of course, you want to make sure everyone's engaging because this is how you change behavior and change habits. It's not about consuming a power, it's not about consuming a video, it's about what you do with that content and knowledge. Is a training effectiveness measured based on real improvements, conversion rates, pipeline growth, or quota attainment? So again, what's the goal here? To get results. So your training should lead to that. Are reps able to walk away and immediately apply what they learn to get results? If they're not able to consistently, that means the trainings are far too high level. It's not tactical enough. You want them to be able to take what they learn and literally either that day or the next day or that week, be able to immediately apply what they learn to the real world. This is how you change habits for the long run. Otherwise, it goes in one ear and out the other. Next are one-on-ones. These are one-on-ones a frontline leader has with the reps every single week. The objective here is, do reps walk away knowing exactly where they stand, the gaps in performance, and exactly what to do next to improve performance? So you gotta ask yourself, number one, are the one-on-ones happening consistently and viewed as valuable as both the manager and the rep? Sadly, I've been part of many one-on-ones where it felt like very much check the box. And you don't want it to be that way. It should be an engaging development conversation. Is there a structured agenda that includes a performance review, deal strategy, and skill development? Sometimes I see with some leaders, they wait until mid-year or end of year to do performance review. Your reps, your team needs to know exactly where they stand at all times. There has to be clear conversations because this is how you actually change and improve performance. Are managers using one-on-ones to coach reps on specific opportunities and skill gaps? So again, this is that moment to really shine, to help that rep become the best version of them. This is that time where it's just them, there's nobody else, it's you and them, or your sales leader and them. This is the opportunity to really improve and make a real impact on their lives. And ultimately, when they change what they do, that will change the results they perform for you. Are one-on-ones customized to each rep's needs, strengths, and development areas? Again, it shouldn't be check the box. Depending what they struggle with, they need to walk away with very clear action items that's going to help them next, okay? And last, do they leave with clear action items and next steps for improvement? This is very important because this is how you run a high-performing one-on-one. So it should not be check the box. It should be very clear. Hey, this is where you are. This is where you stand. Here's where you need to be. Here's what we can do to help you get there. And if they're already performing at a super high level, great. How do we help you get to the next level? Next, we're going to dive into professional development. So are the reps invested into for long-term success and growing as stronger sales professionals and future leaders? We want to have a longer time horizon to look at your reps, because the reality is the longer you can retain a high-performing rep and develop in the organization, it'll reduce your overall cost of trying to acquire new talent. But on top of that, it'll make you far more profitable, and it helps build better and longer culture. So you want to ask yourself, is there a clear path for career progression with defined milestones for reps to advance in their roles? Oftentimes, most reps think they need to just perform and they'll get promoted. Performing is just one part of the battle. What are other things you want to see out of each person to get to the next level, to get promoted to be a sales manager, director, or even beyond that? Are reps receiving continuous learning opportunities beyond sales skills, such as leadership, business acumen, personal growth? The reality is, as you probably know, sales skills is one part of the equation. There are other skills that they may need to develop depending on what type of role that they're going after next. If they're an SMB rep wanting to go into an enterprise rep role, those are very different sales skills you must develop. If you are a rep and want to go into a leadership role, again, very different skills. So you want to ask yourself, how do we develop those people and provide a plan in place to increase their skills across the board? So this way we can make sure they stay with us for the long run. Do managers actively mentor and support reps in achieving their career goals? This goes back to when I mentioned the people perspective. You must be a long-term thinker as a frontline manager to think about, hey, how can I make sure my people are going to become leaders of leaders over time? So that means that leader, when they understand, they're developing them at a whole new level that's beyond just selling more business. Our top performers given opportunities to take on leadership, mentorship, and strategic projects. What I often find is top reps generally are left alone, which is good and bad to some extent, which is, hey, just keep doing what you're doing, which is fantastic. But a lot of them actually yearn to continue growing because over time, they eventually get bored of their role. They get bored of just constantly winning. I know it sounds strange, but they want a new challenge. That's very normal for top performers. And one of the best ways is to leverage their discretionary effort into giving them strategic things to work on that's going to make them better, depending on whatever their goals are. For instance, if you have a rep who's consistently crushing it and they want to eventually leave the sales organization, hey, what can you do to help develop them? I'll give you some examples of what I personally did. So for some of my top reps, I'll actually have separate one-on-ones with them and I'll teach them how these certain skills that I knew would help them. I'll teach them how to read a P&L. I'd bring them to internal meetings with other leaders. I would actually train them on how to run sales, on run training meetings, right? And provide structure for them to grow and develop. I send them to conferences. My point is I saw them as an investment. And I want to make sure I develop beyond just sales skills to make sure they were going to be a great professional across the board. And last but not least is professional development seen as a core part of company culture with investment in books, courses, trainers, coaches, events, and external learning. This is also very important because, again, your number one asset is going to be your people, but there has to be a process in how you actually implement these things. Now we're going to dive into call reviews and field rides. The field rides are more so if you have an in-person sales team, which actually in the field in the car with them, or it could be call reviews when you listen to calls, or you're literally hopping on virtual Zoom calls or Teams calls with your reps, with customers, all right? So you ask yourself, are call reviews or ride-alongs, in-person or virtual, happening consistently as part of the coaching process? The reality is most salespeople talk a really good game and they will sell and convince you on why a deal is going to happen or not happen, whatever. And the best way to see what the truth is literally see what's happening when they're actually on calls, whether it's in person or virtual. So is that consistently happening? Are leaders providing structured, constructive feedback based on actual calls and meetings? This is really, really important, right? I had a field sales team. For 4 half days a week, I was in the field with them, riding and literally meeting with 2-3 different prospects with them during that time. I also was in the bullpen with them, listening calls, jumping on calls, helping them with calls as well, so I could really see and have a pulse on the market. And this is actually really vital because this allowed me to coach more effectively, but also this gave me ideas for even the training meetings on what I need to help the team with. Do call reviews, focus on key selling moments, discovery, objection handling, and closing. This is really key. So sadly, I've seen some call review feedback from leaders where it's like, oh, good job, keep on going. When in reality, there are specific fundamental things that have to be done on the call to improve their sales skills. Are you coaching on that? Or is your frontline leader coaching on that? Are reps giving clear action items after reviews to improve a specific area of the sales conversation? It can't just be like, hey, ask better questions on your discovery. All right, see you later. It should be very clear. Hey, when you get to the point about understanding the buying process, here's 5 questions. Let's start asking in every single situation. Let's role play together. Okay, next week, let's see how we do here. And every call the rest of this week, I want you to work on asking those 5 questions. Does that sound good? Great. So it's really clear that action is going to help them drive towards an end result. This is also a big one too, which is, are positive behaviors being recognized and reinforced? Because the reality is a lot of them do a lot of great things too. And sometimes I've been on the receiving end where I get only the critique and none of the positive stuff. So I'm not even sure was the other stuff good. This is really important to be able to reinforce and recognize what they're doing really well. That's why I usually do a 3x3 rule, which is first I'll have them share what they believe went really well. And then I'll say, hey, here's 3 things that you did a great job with. And I'll get really specific. You did a really great job with this specific thing. So for instance, hey, the conversation totally pivoted where they went down a rabbit hole, and you did an excellent job when they got done talking, addressing it, looping it back, and bringing it back to why we're actually on the call. That was so smooth. Great job with that. So we're getting really specific to reinforce behavior we want to continue to see. And then we give them 3 things that are very specific and very tactical. They can literally apply on the next call right after. Our top performing reps calls analyze and share the examples of the team. So most teams have zero idea of what good looks like, and definitely not what excellence looks like. So when you have these great call recordings, share with the team, but point out specific things that you can show the team of what they do really well, so this way they can duplicate those things. Next, we're going to recognition. Does a recognition program effectively motivate, retain, and drive high performance? This is a clear process. If you don't have a process for recognition, chances are pretty good you're probably not recognizing the people. All right, so you want to ask yourself, is a recognition program designed to drive the right sales behaviors and long-term success? And this could be anything from a President's Club, a Winners Club, an Iron Eagle, whatever you want to call it. But there should be clear recognition programs that are formal in place to really drive towards that. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy we say much on a trip. It could be even simple as the number 1 rep gets X spiff or bonus, or just gets this type of recognition, whatever it's going to be. But it's really clear, and it's going to drive the right behaviors, right? Do they understand the reps? Does the team understand the exact criteria to achieve recognition? And is it perceived as fair and attainable? If it's just like an unknown, then that's not very fair. So you want to make sure it's really clear. Our top performers publicly celebrate in a way that reinforces a culture of excellence. So this, again, is very important. So if it's just, all right, they win these, like a gift card, that's really it, and there's no real recognition outside of that, that will just fall to the wayside. That's just a waste of money. So you want a way that reinforces this is what excellence looks like, and we want to see more of this. Does the program offer meaningful incentives? This could be financial, experiential, career growth that truly motivate the reps. So this has to be something they actually want. Are there different tiers and time frames for recognition? So for instance, an annual one could be President's Club, and a quarterly one could be Winners Club. So this way, if someone's not pacing hit President's Club, but they still have a couple Winners Club quarters, which is a high number to hit as well, great. That's still really nice as well. Now, this is a big one. Aside from like a formal recognition program, for some of you out there, you might be like, we're not big enough to have something like that. That's okay. Does your manager have a cadence of recognizing the reps for other results, behaviors consistently throughout the year? This could be something you literally create that's designed to drive performance. And I'll give you a really simple example. The product company I was at was great because they had very set things for President's Club, they had things for Summit Club. So it's very clear, hey, you hit these numbers and you're in the top percentile for each category, for the quarter, for the year, whatever, right? And that's great. Now, what I thought would be very useful, and because they would also send out a monthly report. It's just a report. So you had to open the report up. There's like thousands of reps on there, and it would show like who was on pace for President's Club. And I thought that's useful. Most reps, number one, aren't going to open it up, not going to filter down and see where they stack. So when I became a director, that I could make sure there's clear visibility. So I wanted to make sure I recognized people that were pacing. And we always had month-end numbers that were very accurate. So what I did was literally every month, we built out a President's Club dashboard. And we had a very simple email that went out because I had a big remote team. It had pictures of all the reps and exactly who was pacing for President's Club. And we put the picture on there and we recognized them every single month. So this way, not only did they have the one from the company, which is like this crazy long report, plus a quarterly report, which is, they're just not going to look into it. They had this monthly thing that got sent out. They could see exactly where they stood, right? And on top of that, what I would do is for all the people that were pacing, I would print out that very pretty slide that had all the pictures, and I'd write them a handwritten personal note, and I'd mail it to their office. And what was amazing was, like, after my first year as a director at 85 plus employees, and most people would send maybe 6 to 8 people to qualify for President's Club, I over doubled that my first year. And it's because this level of recognition was definitely a key component. They knew this is what everyone's looking at. This is a recognition piece, and they absolutely loved it. And the cool part was, because I actually did physical sign things with notes, went to visit their offices, I would see that thing like taped up in their cubicle because they were getting recognized. And it was cool because I met some of their spouses at President's Club, and they would tell me, they're like, oh wow, we saw that. That was really cool. You did that every single week. We love that. Or every single month. That was really cool. So, and on top of that, to really hit home this point, because again, I didn't spend any money on this, just time of just having my admin put together this thing. And we just sent out just my time of just signing. It's all it took, right? Like even one year, we sent over 25 people that qualified to President's Club of my org. And I remember literally on my stage at President's Club, and my senior people like, how do you have so many people? Like they were literally like shocked that someone had sent so many people over to President's Club, right? And again, a big part has to do with having those type of recognition programs. So this is one of those things where it's very easy to not do, but when you've done it really well, even some of these informal recognition can be really powerful, very motivating as well. Next, we're talking about compensation. So is a comp plan fair, moving in line with business objectives? So you may or may not have impact on the compensation plan, but if you do, let's check the sections. Is the plan designed to reward the right behaviors and long-term success, not just short-term wins? Do top performers have the ability to earn significantly more than the average low performers? Okay. Is the plan simple, transparent, and easy for reps to understand? Is there a good balance to between base and variable pay and accelerators? Are compensation and quota expectations regularly reviewed and adjusted based on market conditions and company goals? Does a comp retain top performers? And reality is if you don't have any power on this, it is what it is. But if you do have power on this, it's making sure, hey, it's going to lead to the right things we're driving towards for our business. Next, we'll dive into technology. And again, you may or may not have impact on this as well, depending on your influence in your organization, but does the tech stack enhance productivity, improve decision-making, and drive revenue growth? Hey, are all the sales tech that you're actually using being fully utilized by reps and managers? Does a tech stack streamline workflows and reduce manual work for reps? Is there clear visibility into pipeline health, sales performance, and activity trends through reporting tools? Are the tools seamlessly integrated with other systems? Do leaders regularly evaluate and optimize the tech stack based on team needs and performance impact? All right. So here, reality is if you have power over this, it could be either you're getting rid of some tech bloat, or you add some new tech in, or you're switching out some tech to make sure it actually drives revenue and improves productivity. Next is lead qualifications. Hey, objective, are reps spending time with the most qualified opportunities? So this is where it's more so like you want to understand, like, is sales and marketing aligned to what a defined qualified lead is? That's the ICP, the demographics, the intent signals. So it's really clear that they both align. Number two, are the leads being properly scored and prioritized based on conversion likelihood? Is there a clear, timely handoff process between sales or marketing to AEs? And do reps have a structured qualification framework like BANT or MEDDIC to assess lead quality? So this is really important because your team could have thousands of leads each, but if they're not properly segmented and qualified, they may spin their wheels with the wrong prospects. Next are sales playbooks. You can see here a lot of these processes are stacking upon each other in different components, and this is a critical one because the objective here is, are there structured talk tracks, objection handling, and value props documented into a playbook? This is really important because this allows consistency across the organization. Do all the reps have access to a structured sales playbook with clear messaging and best practices? Are talk tracks, value props, and competitive differentiators well documented and tested? Do reps know how to handle the most common objections effectively? Is the playbook messaging regularly updated based on market shifts, competition, and feedback? Do the reps feel confident using the playbook in real sales conversations into driving better results? And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can literally be a Google Doc that breaks down the core components that you need inside there so they know exactly how to win. This is literally showing them what good looks like, every part of their role for success. So let me give you an example of the power of playbooks. We worked with a client recently in which they dug into basically the audit results and realized very quickly that their team was really good at the more transactional roles, or transactional deals, so like the 10K SMB deals. They could pretty consistently as a team, about 25% win rate, so decent as a team overall as an organization. So they could close like clockwork. But once the deal size went past 100K, their win rate went down to 5%. So they were losing a lot of deals. And they realized pretty quickly they had a pretty good playbook for the transactional SMB deals. But from a mid-market enterprise segment perspective, they really didn't have a playbook. So we work closely with them to formulate this playbook, formulate their process, and really train the team on the playbook and give them the skills for success. And within 6 months, average deal size went from 10K to 250K. That's a 25x improvement in average deal size. And the win rate for enterprise deals went from 5% to 25%. This is the power of a really clear playbook for the organization. It allows for scaling. And they're actually in the process right now raising an extra $10 million now because of their consistent success. So pretty wild. But that's the power of having a clear playbook for sales. All right, last but not least, the point of turnover. Here we want to find out, is turnover a symptom of deeper issues or a healthy level of attrition that improves team performance. All right. Ask yourself, is turnover primarily voluntary, so reps just leaving on their own for better opportunities, or involuntary, so there's underperformance or layoffs? This tells you potential other root problems depending on what's going to be. What are the most common reasons reps leave, and do we have data from exit interviews? Are we experiencing higher turnover than industry benchmarks, and how is it compared to other competitive organizations? And do top performers stay with the company long term, or are they leaving in the same rate as average or low performers? So this is a really important category to look into because you can learn a lot from the turnover component. Years ago, I used to think that having zero turnover was good. I'm like, why would you want to save everybody? And I remember I took a team from 60% turnover consistently, that was really quite bad, to 0% turnover my first year. And we had pretty good results. We still hit our number, etc., right? But we weren't quite an elite team. And that's when I realized we had some people on the team, they performed, but they were actually hurting the culture. In fact, they had the skill fit, they had the results, but culturally, very negative. They talked down to everybody. They were a jerk, frankly. They just weren't a good person overall, unfortunately, right? So that same year, I started coaching out some of these people that were basically hurting our culture. And our turnover went from 0% to 20% that year. But here's what's interesting. Even though we had more turnover and we had some new people on the team, we still had far better results. I think we increased result by an extra 50% that next year, and we won team of the year. So that's why it's good to have a balance of turnover, because you want to make sure you're keeping the best people, and the people that don't make it, you're churning them out over time. All right, so there you have it, my full 23-point sales organization assessment. Now, if you want our help to assess your org and to help implement some of these changes, you can book a call below. And if you want to see the results of what happens when you assess your team properly and implement the right solves and solution, check out my interview with Dustin Phillips, where 100% of his team hit their quota and became the #1 sales leader at a $1 billion SaaS company. Check it out right here.